Richard Tice MP, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, to talk about, well, a little story in the news involving a quite famous man who perhaps he, well, looks like he's going to get very much involved with Reform UK. And, of course, talking about the world's richest man, Elon Musk. A very good morning to you, Richard.
A very good morning to you.
So, talks yesterday. Nigel Farage meeting, along with Nick Candy, your new donor, come over from the Tories. He's already pledged to give you a seven-figure sum. Meeting with Elon Musk, talking about funding for the Reform UK party. $100 million is a number that got mentioned at one point.
That was a number plucked out of thin air by the Sunday Times, who I think were sort of a bit short of space, short of things to write about.
That's a lot of money in British politics, $100 million.
Let's be clear. Elon Musk loves the United Kingdom, the home of English-speaking nations. He's got serious business interests here, whether it's X, whether it's Tesla, whether it's Starlink, and he wants the United Kingdom to do well. He wants our economy to grow, and he recognises that Labour's a catastrophe and that Britain needs reform in every sense, and that's why he's been speaking to Nigel, met our new Treasurer, Nick Candy, and, you know, he's put out there on X that, you know, we've got to turn this country around. We've got to reform our country, and so, you know, no promises, no guarantees, but he, like many other business people, are saying, yes, actually, reform is the future. The
interesting thing, of course, is his involvement with Donald Trump. Massive support for Donald Trump during that campaign. Thought, you know, that may have been a key part of the campaign, particularly in those swing states, which Donald Trump won all of those. But also his ability to, you know, use X, his social media company, to actually, you know, push some of the arguments, push some of the debates. How important a role would that play for you?
Absolutely vital, because he had an interesting discussion with Nigel about tech, about how to get those people who are not registered to vote, to get them on the voting list.
That was a key thing in the Brexit campaign, wasn't it?
It was a key thing in Brexit, but it was a key thing in the swing states in the recent presidential election in the States. And it is, we all want more people to vote. And I think that if we can encourage that, lots of young people really enthused by the momentum, the personality, the conviction that we offer in reform. So more and more young people coming up to us and say, how do I get involved? How do I join? How do I vote? And that's fantastic.
And
it's great.
This is very much allied to what's been going on in Europe, isn't it? And actually, indeed, also with Donald Trump's successful campaign, in terms of, a lot of people have seen it as, oh, you know, the Brexiteers, which you're still very much, you, Nigel, associated with the Brexit campaign. Oh, it's older people, you know, the rest of the country's moved on. Simply not the case, as we see in Europe. Young people flocking to parties, again, often derided as far right, hard right, but actually just parties who've got what used to be considered quite mainstream
like Giorgia Meloni, who's now considered the sort of the darling of EU leaders.
Yeah, indeed. And well, the only one who's actually solid at the moment.
But I think we should just remind everybody, those that sort of harking back to the old EU days, the EU's not doing very well economically. Germany is in recession, heading south, sadly, fast. Why would you want to re-hitch yourself or reset yourself closer to a failing economic model, a failing migration model, when actually America is growing? Maybe we should learn some lessons.
I was going to ask you about that, actually, because it's really interesting. There's accusations and claims that are coming in that you know, it's basically a surrender by the back door, that Keir Starmer would take us back into the European Court of Justice. It's not been denied by Downing Street. That's a clear, easy denial, that one, isn't it? Of course we wouldn't do that. Won't take us back. I mean, pledges in the manifesto and on, you know, on air repeatedly, wouldn't take us back into the customs union. And
yeah, we know what their pledges in their manifesto are like. I mean, basically, if you believe the opposite, you'll probably get somewhere near the truth. Look, it would be a catastrophe for us to do any of those things, but in a sense, it would also be a gift to reform if they do, because it'll just move more people our way, more people who voted Brexit or see the benefits of the opportunity of Brexit if you do the job properly. And of course, we've got a president-elect of the United States that is looking at imposing tariffs on the EU, and thanks to the relationship that Nigel's got with the president-elect, hopefully we can ensure that...
He's going to talk him into not doing it.
Well, that's a very much part of the opportunity, and because he realises that actually, you know, the UK is America's biggest single trading partner and investment partner, and vice versa. So let's maximise those benefits. Let's do a partial trade deal on the things that you can agree. Park the things that are too difficult in the pending tray, and show some optimism, show some growth, show some potential. And go for it.
It's one of the things you would want from from Elon Musk would be some advice when he sets up his formal department on January the 20th, DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. They're talking about sacking, you know, sort of 90% of civil servants, you know, American, you know, federal stuff. I mean, I'd happily see something in the realms of that here in the UK, even if you just had to, even if you were going to rehire a bunch of them again, but at least on new terms where, yeah, you actually understand that you are a servant of the democratically elected people who are elected to make the decisions, but also, yeah, we'd like you to turn up occasionally.
Absolutely, and I hope that Mr. Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are very successful in that and show us, again, a great example, because the truth is, I think America will be growing at 3.5% a year. We'll be flatlining at best. And people who scratch their head, oh, I wonder how they did that. Maybe they got cheap energy by drill, baby, drill. Maybe they cut daft regulations. Maybe they cut swathes of daft commissions and quangos that we don't need at all. And that gives you the ability to reduce taxes, to make work pay, to make risk-taking pay. And actually, making money is a good thing. And we should celebrate it, encourage it amongst young people.
We really don't in this country, do we? In America, people do, but we absolutely don't in this country.
We've got to change that culture.
There's this idea here often that, but if someone's rich, we had a Labour guest on the other week saying, right, you know, if someone is rich, by definition, they must have exploited people to get rich. And I pointed out, you know, the person selling me my iPhone didn't exploit me. No, I'm really happy to spend my money on a good product.
Maybe actually they provided great service, provided a good product, and they worked jolly hard. And I think we should celebrate that. And I think that's a great, great thing for young people to look forward towards. And guess what? That actually means that more people are going to actually not be on benefits, but get back to work, get stuck in. I think there's huge potential, but under this Labour government, we're heading south. Growth is down, employment's down, inflation's up, debt is up. We are spending more than we're earning. We're heading to a very bad economic place.
Here's the thing. OK, when the Tories were looking like they were going to be losing office, and many people who long-term Tory voters, I mean, you were a Tory voter in the past, were actually saying, well, so be it. You know, you're Labour light anyway. You didn't do the things you said you were going to do. You let us down. You're stale. We need a fresh set of eyes. It was pointed out to many people, including yourself and Nigel Farage, that if people voted Reform at the last election, and 4+ million people did, it was very likely they would split the vote on the right. And that would mean that Labour would win more seats. Labour did win a lot more seats. They probably owe about 100 seats to Reform in terms of that vote being split. What do you say to people who say, well, you know what? OK, I think most Labour voters could agree that Labour are far worse in government than many people feared or thought they would be. But a lot of people on the Tory side might say, well, it's your fault, Richard. It's your fault, Nigel.
But isn't it exciting? Because now democracy is the winner, because we've got 3 parties polling in the 20s. Within a month or so, every prospect will be consistently polling ahead of the Tories, and maybe it'll then be the Tories splitting the vote on the right. And maybe actually we'll be polling the highest of everybody. What people did in voting Reform, they gave us that bridgehead. They gave us that momentum to increase the membership by more than double in the last 5 months. Serious business people are getting behind Reform. We're the party of the future to save this great country.
What is the key issue on which you think that you're winning those votes? Is it on the immigration, mass legal and, of course, illegal migration? Is it on the economy? What is it on?
It's a number of things. It's immigration, but it's also actually highlighting to people that net zero is responsible for higher bills, and net zero is responsible for the cost of living crisis. And we're saying, look, you adapt to climate change. You can't stop the power of the sun, for heaven's sake. Get a grip. And people recognise that we just tell it as it is. And whether it's on other stuff, difficult stuff that people don't want to talk about, I think people like the conviction. And that's what I'm so excited.
Culture war's a big part of this?
It's all a part of it, cumulatively. But what young people like, in the age of sort of 16 to 24, they like the conviction. They like the belief. They like the passion. And if we can get those people to vote who previously may not have voted, you're going to see the most enormous swing towards Reform.
Which, of course, we have seen towards the right-wing parties in Europe. You are going to have to flesh out your manifestos. But I know you've got... You didn't call it a manifesto.
We called it a contract. Everyone says...
Yeah, I know. No, come on. You did have policies, but look, a lot of it, you know as well as I do, is not fully thought through. Because same with the Lib Dems, same with the Greens. If you don't expect to go into power, you don't have to worry about it.
Nonsense.
Hey, listen, Labour thought they were going to win, and they still didn't think through their manifesto, because then they've had to backtrack on everything and basically shown that they lied to us.
There's 2 things.
You're going to have to flesh some stuff out.
2 things, right? Firstly, our contract, most people didn't bother to read before criticising.
Most political journalists don't read these things.
It's pretty short, right? It was all costed, and actually, Labour have now started to adopt some of our policies. So we were told you can't save £5 and 100. Darren Jones has literally just written to everybody saying, Say £5 and 100. I've got the FT, the Sunday Times, the Economist journalists all agreeing with me. Oh, Tice was right about not paying voluntary interest on the quantitative easing reserves, OK? 30 billion quid. I've now got lots of people agreeing with me. I was right on the cost of net zero. All of a sudden, you're saving over £100 billion. Hey, presto.
You've got the money. On one of the issues that's leading the news today, the WASPy women, 3.8 million women are being told by Liz Kendall, the Work and Pension Secretary, even though she and the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister all said they thought these women had been badly treated, needed compensation. She said they're not going to get what would be a total of £10 billion in compensation. Is Liz Kendall right, even though she is going against a pledge she made before election?
But we've never made that pledge. What we've always said is that WASPy women, like everybody, would benefit from our key economic policy of only paying income tax when you're earning more than £20,000 a year, compared to £12,500.
A lot of these women weren't earning at all. They were carers, the women who were most hurt.
Yes, that's right, but they're earning if they get pensions, for example, which most of them would. Whereas now, at the moment, many people earning pensions, receiving pensions, are suddenly finding themselves paying income tax. Well, they wouldn't under reforms policies. So we're saying that's the best way for everybody to benefit. And that would be year after year as opposed to a one-off compensation package.
And what do you make of the apparently hundreds of thousands of people who've now applied to receive tens to hundreds of thousands of people who applied to get their winter fuel payment by applying for pensioner credit after losing their sort of universal pensioner right to that £300 extra towards their heating bills? Apparently many of those people are not going to get, because of this big backlog in cases, not going to get their money until after the new year.
Chaotic Labour thinking. Maybe they should have thought about this stuff before announcing it. Maybe, if it ain't
politicians going to start doing that.
Well, what they should have done is just, leave it as it was. They could have said, let's have a consultation about if you want to means test things. Maybe the best thing to do is have a consultation about scrapping net zero, and then guess what? Your energy bills, your fuel bills, your heating bills go down, and therefore you wouldn't even need the fuel.
I'm an amen on that one. Just finally, it's my final show of the year. You know me and my warm weather Christmases. I'm just not even ashamed of this. I will, of course, be tweeting some pictures.
It's only mid-December, Julia.
Just to annoy the people who it most annoys. But what are your biggest hopes and fears for 2025?
My hope is that reform continues to grow in the polls, will be over 30%, and I'm not afraid of anything.
There you are. At 10:35 is the time.